Yeah!
Hey y'all, it's your friendly neighborhood content editor Renata here. Just wanted to do a quick introduction to the interview you're about to watch. We brought on Jeff Chilton, who's the founder of Nammex, which is the company that supplies us with our mushroom extracts. So we decided to do a two-part series in our community blog. The first part was a post about the differences between extracts made with mushrooms and extracts made with mycelium, which is something that Jeff is so passionate about and so knowledgeable about. So we wanted to bring him on and talk to him. So you can find on our community blog both part one, that post I was talking about, as well as part two, which is the abridged typed up version of this interview. So if you'd prefer to read it, please feel free to go there and do that. But even before watching this, I would say go on and read part one, just so you can get some background on some things that Jeff will be talking about. He's so knowledgeable. He's been in the industry so long. So you'll hear my introduction to him in the actual interview itself. You can see his passion, you can see his knowledge. I can't wait for you guys to watch it. If you want to skip around, obviously that's cool. You can look in the details. I'm assuming they're below me when I point like this. So you can look in the details and see when you can find answers to certain questions or certain points that Jeff makes instead of watching the whole thing straight through. Totally up to you. Yeah, I think I said all the things I needed to say. So enjoy. So first of all, Jeff, thank you for joining us. So truly a pioneer in this area, of course, studying ethnomycology for college, right? University of Washington, working on a commercial mushroom farm, founding Mycelium, which held 4 mushroom conferences in the Pacific Northwest, co-authoring a book, The Mushroom Cultivator, starting Nammex, which of course is how we know you, because that's where we get our extracts from. Organizing the first mushroom production seminar in China in the 90s. And then you're a founding member of the World Society for Mushroom Biology. I was like, there's no way I'm going to memorize all this. You know what I mean? So many author, founder, co-founder, first of, it is almost insane. Like definitely a pioneer in this area, of course. What sparked your initial interest? Like what motivated you and inspired you to go into this field?
Well, I think you have to remember, for one, that I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. It's a very rainy, moderate climate. We have some of the best wild mushroom hunting in the world. Mm-hmm. So mushrooms are all around me. And then look, it's also the 60s. And we're doing a lot of experimentation in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Mushrooms are part of that, what we would call initially magic mushrooms. And so that was certainly a part of it. And so I'm at university, I'm studying anthropology. And I love anthropology because I was really interested in how people do things, the customs that they use, all the different manners of doing things. And so that as well as I took courses in mycology, mm-hmm. which is the study of fungi. So you put the two together, and what, again, they don't have a department of ethnomycology, right. But that's what I put together. So in my anthropology, I'm studying the use of mushrooms for food, for medicine, and for shamanic purposes. Mm-hmm. And then after university, I actually went to Mexico and spent a year and a half in Mexico, kind of tracking down the shamanic side of mushrooms. Mm-hmm. But then when I got back from my trip, I'm like, there are no jobs in ethnomycology or mycology or anthropology.
Oh, geez. Oh, no.
So what should I do? Well, there happened to be one mushroom farm in Washington State, and I was just thinking, man, I'd love to grow mushrooms. That would be so cool. And so I went down and applied for a job, got a job. I was there for 10 years. And Renata, the thing about it is like a mushroom farm, this is like a huge farm. There are 200 employees there. 2 million pounds of mushrooms per year we were growing. And all of a sudden, there I was on this farm. I was just so excited. I was just like stoked. And I just started out as a, forklift driver and this kind of stuff, but ultimately worked my way to be a grower, learned how to grow, learned how the whole process worked, and ultimately became a production manager there. And 10 years there, literally living with mushrooms.
Yeah.
Living with mushrooms. And it was we had about probably 40 different, what we would call houses, but big rooms in which these mushrooms were growing, and they're all on a 90-day cycle. So we're putting in new crops every week, throwing out old crops every week. And ultimately in 1 year, I'm seeing 200 different crops. Now think about that. Think about a normal farmer, one crop a year, 60 crops in a lifetime, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing 200 different crops. Now, like anything else, like any farmer, we're trying to make the conditions the same for every crop, because that's kind of the whole idea. And we're looking for the best yield, and we're trying to do certain things so that we'll get the right size and we'll get the most mushrooms, and they've grown up perfectly the way we want them. But it was fascinating. I loved it. It was great.
That sounds like fun problem solving to me, right? Like just trying to figure out conditions, trying to get it the same from year to year. That sounds like fun problem solving.
Well, yes, and there's a ton of information out there. So while the other employees there that I'm working with are all kind of like just doing their job, I'm there reading about mushroom growing at lunchtime and so on. And they're just like, what are you doing, man? We just want to get out of here and you want to stay.
That's what it's like though, when you're passionate, right? Do what you love and never work a day in your life.
Well, yes, and I totally subscribe to that. If you're doing something that you enjoy doing, and especially if your time is your own and you can just go ahead and do it, then oh man, you've got the best of all worlds there. And so I mean, there's a huge body of information too about mushroom growing, because it had been going on in the United States anyway for probably 100 years or so, and lots written about how to do it. So I looked at the whole history of it from start to finish. How are you growing these things? What's the best method? And remember too, this is an agaricus farm, which is the button mushroom, commonly see in the supermarkets. But we had a Japanese scientist there who was running our R&D department. And he's growing shiitake, he's growing oyster mushrooms, and he's growing enoki-take. So I also was involved in growing those particular mushrooms. So think about this. In the 1970s, I was eating fresh shiitake mushrooms. and we literally, the company put fresh shiitake mushrooms into the supermarkets in Western Washington in 1978, the very first time shiitake mushrooms were ever put into the market in the US on any kind of a scale. Oh, wow. So it was a huge deal. And for me, just to be able to see other mushrooms and how they grew, I mean, because I was interested in okay, how many other mushrooms can we grow? How do they grow? What do we have to do? To me, that was just like, yeah, I want to know all of that. And that kind of ultimately went into the book that I co-authored in 1973, because we talk about at least a dozen different species of mushrooms and what do you have to do to grow them.
Right. No, that makes sense. So take that for me and tell me how it transitions into Nammex, right? Into something where you're doing these extracts.
Well, mushroom growing is something where every single mushroom you've ever eaten has been picked by hand. It's picked, mushrooms are harvested by hand. I mean, can you imagine? There's no machines. Every single crop that I was telling you about, well, every crop was about 10,000 kilos and maybe 1,000,000 mushrooms in that one crop. People went in every single day to harvest those mushrooms, because when they come up, it's not like a field of corn which comes up, okay, now they're already harvested. No, it comes up in 3 to 4 what we would call flushes.
Wow.
So you go in for the first flush, it's 5 or 6 days, you harvest it till it's all gone. You wait for a period of 5 days, up comes another flush of mushrooms. So literally on a mushroom farm, you are harvesting every single day of the year.
That's great.
You have people harvesting on Christmas.
Yeah.
On New Year's, on Thanksgiving, every single day of the year, they are there and harvesting, because you have all of these different crops. They're all, well, in their different stages, but you have an X number of them that are producing mushrooms all the time. So in other words, mushrooms do not sleep.
That's true. Well, as you said, you never get a break. I was like, well, that sounds perfect for someone who wants to make mushrooms their life, right? You're like, oh boy, best Christmas ever. Mushroom harvest. Yes.
Yeah, not quite. Because what you learn, and after I left and I went out and I had a business making mushroom spawn. I mean, have you ever been to a mushroom farm?
So unfortunately, and this is to my father's great disappointment, I have not, because my family used to own mushroom farms back before I was born.
My God.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. And where were these farms?
So we're in southern New Jersey. So they were right around here. Southern New Jersey is, New Jersey is the garden state. So it's very, like, there are crops everywhere. My mom grew up right outside of, what did they grow there? I want to say cabbage and, various different things. But my dad's family owned mushroom farms.
Wow. Because the real area where mushroom growing is the largest is in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
That is like mushroom growing central for the United States.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's very, very interesting. Well, okay, so do you have any idea what we use for seeds for growing?
Tell me.
No, I'm not going to.
Rude. Wow.
Well, look, mushrooms don't have seeds; they have spores. We
Right.
don't use spores to plant for mushrooms. What we do, and let me just start here and say, okay, this organism that we call a mushroom. It is actually starts with a spore, because mushrooms don't have seeds. So the spores go out, they land on the ground or in a piece of wood or something like that. The spore will germinate into a very, very fine filament, like a thread-like filament, very fine. When multiple spores come together, they fuse and they'll create a network. So this network of all of these fine filaments, which is called mycelium. Okay, mycelium is the vegetative body. That's like the true body of this organism, and we never normally see it, right? And then when conditions are right, that vegetative body, which has been consuming a lot of organic matter, building up all of this basic nutrients, puts up a mushroom. The mushroom comes up. As it develops, the cap opens, the gills produce spores. Now we've got the life cycle, 3 different plant parts: spore, mycelium, mushroom. You probably heard this before, but
you're good,
so we've got these different parts of it. So what we do to actually create seed for mushroom growing is we take that live mycelium, we will sterilize some carrier. It might be grain, it might be sawdust, but we will put that mycelium, we'll sterilize that. This is all done in a lab. We'll put that live mycelium onto those materials. That the mycelium will grow out on it all, colonize it. Now, let's just say that grain, and in a jar, a gallon jar, we might have thousands of grains in there.
Right.
Each grain now becomes a seed. and the seed is the mycelium.
Mm-hmm.
So we use live mycelium as our seed to grow mushrooms. So that's how we actually start. So I had a lab in the 80s to create this seed and sell it commercially. And then and one of the things was I also had a small little mushroom farm. But what I realized was, look, I don't want to be a babysitter.
That makes sense.
And I had known about medicinal mushrooms for quite some time. Known about reishi and all of these other mushrooms. Shiitake is a medicinal mushroom. And I thought, man, mushrooms as a nutritional supplement now instead of a fresh product. Remember, when I harvest my mushrooms, they have to go into a cooler.
Right.
Now you have to get those to the market right away. Otherwise, they will spoil. So you have a short window there, and the markets want those mushrooms every single week. We want those mushrooms. So you're literally a slave to this. You can't leave it for even a single day.
Right.
Until and look, there's you'll hear a lot about people out there. Oh yeah, I'm growing mushrooms, and isn't this great? I've got the small business growing mushrooms. They're getting paid $2 an hour.
Right. Yeah.
Literally, I'm not kidding you. They have a day job where they're actually earning enough to live on. One of them is if it's a pair, but otherwise they are not making any money at all until you scale it up to a very certain point. And that's the difficult part.
Right.
Is scaling it up. You're going to have to, put a lot of money into building the facilities and all of this to make it efficient. And most small growers, they don't really have a clue about how to do that. And a lot of times they will take hobby type methods and they will kind of scale those up, and it just creates more labor.
Yeah, I could imagine. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there I am in 1989. I go, hey, I'm going to change gears. I'm going to now start to grow mushrooms as a supplement. But here's the rub on this, is that you can't grow mushrooms in North America and put them into the supplement market. You can't do it economically, because you can take your fresh mushrooms to the market and you can get, let's just say, $5 a pound.
Right.
Wholesale.
Right.
Because those shiitake are costing you $12 or $15.
Yeah.
A lot for your retail, but wholesale, you're taking them there $5 a pound. But the minute you dry those out, now those fresh shiitake, which are 90% water, you have to get $50 because it's a tenth as much.
Right.
The economics do not work. I mean, $50 for a pound of dried shiitake, it's like, no. And and think about this. Okay, what if you're a company and going like, okay, I want to make an extract, so I need 4 pounds, and it's like, wow, $200, and now you have to put the cost of actually producing the extract, and then pretty soon it's like, oh man, it's costing me $250 for just this 1 pound of 4-to-1 extract here. How do I sell that? You can't. It's just the price becomes too. So I realized that because I know the economics of mushroom growing on scale. Because of that, I went to China and learned all about the fact of they've been growing mushrooms for 800 years. They've got a well-developed mushroom industry. There are tens of thousands of small growers. This is one of the things I love. All of our growers are small businesses. They're just fantastic. And we go and every year we go over there and we visit the farms. During the 90s, I traveled to China extensively, went to conferences, research institutes, saw lots of farms, met lots of people, developed my relationships. So I started purchasing mushroom extracts, and I started going to trade shows in the early 90s. I think 1990 was my first trade show, and trying to introduce these mushroom products to an industry that had not a clue. What? Do you see this reishi mushroom? what is this thing? It's hard as wood. What do we do with it?
Well, I'm smiling because so I've listened to several podcasts that you've been on, and I literally wrote down a note because you said it a bunch for a few different things. I brought cordyceps, and the people said my customers are not going to eat caterpillars. So I wrote that down, and I'm like, love it.
I know. It's so true. And so it took 10 years anyway to really get things rolling to the point where businesses, because it really is a matter of there is no demand for these products. Why should I put them out? How do I sell them? What's going on with these? So writing articles, books, you name it, getting information out there and trying to educate people. So the whole 90s was a matter of education for companies as well as consumers. It was a big job. And the other side of it, of course, is look, I totally believe in certified organic products.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1997, I took one of the largest organic certifiers in the United States to China with me. And we held the very first organic certification workshop for mushrooms in China. And that just started it off. In 3 years, we had organically certified mushrooms. And today in China, I mean, it's not just the farms that I work with, but there's a very large organic industry in China, not just for mushrooms, but a lot of other products. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, China, sure. It's like, look, if you think about the amount of chemicals that we pour onto our crops in the United States, it's like, come on. So my whole theme, so to speak, is look, it doesn't really matter where they are grown. I mean, it matters where they're grown, but the point is, that's the key. And the fact of whether or not you're growing it in an area where there's not a lot of pesticide or chemical use, whether you've got a program in place where it doesn't use chemicals, and then ultimately the analyses that can demonstrate and prove that you're free of chemicals.
Right.
That's what's important. It's not important about, oh yeah, it's grown in China, it's grown in the US, it's growing somewhere else. It's like, no, if you could grow mushrooms in North America economically, we would do that, but you can't. And that leads us to basically the next idea, which is, okay, so what happens? Well, now companies decide that they're going to grow mycelium on grain, which is designed to be seed for growing mushrooms. It's done in a lab. It's not difficult, but they grow it out, and instead of using it for seed, they will dry it, grind it to a powder, grain and all, and then call it mushroom, which it's not. Mycelium is a plant part, but the key issue, and this is something that you should really be focused on, is that they are selling people grain powder. A lot of people do not eat grains these days. A lot of people are just like, no, I want to, cut down my carbohydrates. Other people are just like, no, I want to be grain free.
Right.
That's an issue that we really try to educate people about and say, hey, look, for one, it's being mislabeled. And the other way that we present this, which I think is very important, and that is, you must know the food tempeh. Okay, here comes the quiz. Do you know how it's made?
I've listened to you talk about it, to be perfectly honest with you. And so it's soybean, right? It's fungus and soybean ground up. Is that?
Well, tempeh, it's not agronomically ground up, but basically tempeh is cooked soybeans with a fungus growing on it, and it's fungal mycelium. So anybody eating tempeh is actually eating mycelium.
Right.
But if you take that block of tempeh and if you were to dry it out, you'd be like, where'd the mycelium go? This looks like nothing but soybeans.
Right.
Okay. And that's essentially what is being sold to people. Tempeh is a food product. And these people that are growing it and calling it mushroom and selling it as a supplement, they're selling you a food product, and that's the way it should be labeled, but it's not a mushroom. And the amount of fungal matter, and this is the key, the amount of fungal matter there is probably about 10% of the product.
Yeah, and this is where I want to plug, of course, your white paper that you did, redefining medicinal mushrooms. So I've read it. I think it's really useful, and it really highlights exactly what you're talking about. And there's, like you said, there's so much to be found online, but we need to know where to look. So,
well, yeah, and I'll also send you the I don't know whether you've got the recent papers that I gave to these mushroom conferences.
No, I don't have them.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just gave a paper. Well, I gave a paper in 2016 on my testing protocol to the International Society for Mushroom Science. And then in 2019, I gave an updated version of the same paper to the International Medicinal Mushroom Conference.
Okay.
That was held in China. And that really updated my white paper in terms of, because we've done so many more samples since then, and it gives a lot of really clear data on the differences between a mushroom extract, a dried mushroom, and these myceliated grain products. And we've got the data for 6 or 7 of the main mushrooms that we sell. And so, it's just so clear, so night and day once you analyze. And this is one of the things that you will find when you're buying those products or looking at their information, is they never give you any analytical information. If they did, it would be embarrassing. And yet, here's the funny thing, Renata, is that these companies will go, oh, our products, they have beta-glucans, they have this and they have that, and yet they have nothing to back it up with. Right. I mean, not only that, they call their products mushrooms when they're not even mushrooms. And that's the thing that is so difficult. And because I consider those products to be adulterated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're selling grain powder. You're not selling a mushroom. You've got some fungal tissue in there, but it's a small amount of the whole, and yet you're calling it a mushroom. So it's totally wrong. It's very unethical. It's an adulterated product, and yet it is 50% of the market out there for supplements.
Yeah. So what can we do? So, I mean, we as Teonon, we as sellers, but also consumers, what can we do to help drive change?
Well, I guess there's the way I would definitely market the product is 2 things. One of which is no grain, no mycelium, no starch. Mm-hmm. Very key. And the other thing is beta-glucans, and the percentage of the beta-glucans, a number, not just, oh yeah, it's got beta-glucans. No, a number. This is what we've got for beta-glucans. Those are the 2 things that to me are what are really starting to resonate out there. More and more companies are saying that. And again, the beta-glucan thing is really important because that's really the key medicinal component in there. So bringing that to the fore with your product, our product is rich in beta-glucans, and we have measured it. So we absolutely know that. And if you want to test these other products, you will find they do not have but a small amount of beta-glucans, and they mostly have alpha-glucans, which are the starches, and mushrooms do not have starch. So there's just some really basic premises there that you need to over and over keep pushing on those and highlight those as the keys to the quality of your product, because this is something, let me tell you, they are stuck. They are absolutely stuck. They cannot get away from the fact that their product is all grain. And now the companies that sell those products will say stuff like, "Oh, our starch is magic starch," or "Oh yeah, there's all these compounds that when the mycelium is growing on the grain, they get secreted into the grain. So that's really where the medicinal compounds are." Well, yeah, that's easy to say. Prove it. What are you talking about? So, I mean, the things that these companies ultimately say, when you break it down, it's just like a lot of them make no sense. Like some companies will say, "Oh, there are enzymes in our products that are really good for you." And you're like, "Well, wait a second. Okay, enzymes. Well, first of all, there's a lot of information out there that says that I mean, we create enzymes. We produce enzymes ourselves. A lot of information that says, like, you know, a lot of enzymes are just getting destroyed in our stomach through the stomach acid. So the fact that enzymes breaking through is not common. And then the other thing is they say, well, there's enzymes in our product. Well, okay, you have subjected your product, and all of them actually say this. They say that, oh yeah, and we've also steam sterilized our product at 200 degrees. Well, guess what? That's going to break down and destroy any enzymes, live enzymes you've got in there.
Right.
So this is just simply not true. The other thing, of course, is they talk about polysaccharides. That is another one of those areas where they're trying to cloak themselves in this term. Beta-glucans are polysaccharides. Polysaccharides are a larger group, but what else is a polysaccharide? Grain powder.
Right.
You know, starch is a polysaccharide. So this is one of those, if you are relying on a polysaccharide test, beware, because it is masking the starches that are in this product that you think is a mushroom product. And by the way, here's a nifty little trick to be able to unmask that product if in fact you've got one right now and you're wondering if you've got the wrong thing. Just empty 4 or 5 capsules out into a quarter cup of water, stir it up really good, 10 drops of iodine.
Yep.
Fun, get your kids involved. It's a great little science project.
Yeah, we're doing water balloons and then we're doing the iodine test, kids.
That's right.
That's today.
That's right. So you know, there are ways essentially to counter all of that, and to also just demonstrate and just to educate people to look. You can do these tests yourself. We're telling you how and what is going on here. Some of these companies are not hiding the fact that they've got grains in there, except in the fine print, which maybe you haven't read, which says myceliated brown rice or myceliated oats. And they're trying to tell you on the side, not right up front, but on the side somewhere in their materials, they're trying to say, oh yeah, this is all really good. It's magic starch. But on the bottle itself, and what they're using to get you to buy the product is a picture of a mushroom and the word mushroom. And here's something too, which for me, I think is very important. And that is, do not use the term fruiting body. Right. Do not use that term, because that's what they use. And the reason they use it is because they want mushroom to mean mycelium.
Right.
No, a mushroom is not mycelium. Mycelium is a fruiting body. I mean, a mushroom is a fruiting body, but mycelium is a vegetative body. 2 separate plant parts. In herbalism, the plant part is absolutely critical. And with supplements, you are supposed to declare what plant part you are selling. that is also very clear.
Hmm.
So you can't claim you're selling a mushroom if what you're actually selling is mycelium. And the other side of this is, oh yes, we know that there's all sorts of research about mycelium out there that talks about its benefits. Yes, that is true, but you're not selling mycelium.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling myceliated grain, the majority of which in your product is grain starch, and mushrooms have no starch.
Right. No, absolutely. So what do you think? What would be the end goal? When you picture in an ideal situation, what do you picture? That there is, a federal body that says, you have to, it's federally regulated to make sure that everything is marked correctly, or maybe some sort of fine when something isn't marked correctly? What would be in your ideal world? How would these things be taken care of?
Well, in my ideal world, I would want FDA to enforce the
Mm,
policy that is out there from 1976, where they say you cannot call a product that is made from mycelium, you cannot call that product mushroom.
mm-hmm.
That compliance document is out there. Do you have that?
Yes. Yeah, I've read
Okay,
that.
that document is there. That's something you can advertise and say, hey, look, companies are not supposed to be able to say that. Okay, that's not being enforced. Number two, Federal Trade Commission in the United States is there to police product claims, and the fact that these products are being called mushroom when they're not is absolutely a claim that is not supported, and it goes totally against the identification of what they're actually selling.
Right.
So that right there is something false. So I would want them to come in and go like, hey, look, you gotta label these properly. And that's something that I've done with our trade organization, American Herbal Products Association. We had we came together in a group, and ultimately I pushed them hard enough to say, look, make sure, let's have a policy that says you have to properly identify this. And if it's mycelium, you have to say mycelium. And for me, it's like, you can't even say mushroom mycelium, because
Right.
that's kind of like saying, root fruit. It's like,
Right.
no. Those are two plant parts. You can't say that's one thing.
Mhm.
No. So these are the types of issues for me that should be addressed, but are not being addressed. And the simple reason is that they have bigger fish to fry.
Right. That's unfortunate.
FDA is interested in something that's producing a lot of harm. Can you imagine? these I actually had a conversation with one of these companies and the owner of it, who's been producing these myceliated grain products for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the first, actually. And so I'm talking to him and I say, David, you're not properly labeling, you're selling something that's not genuine. And he says, look, no. The most important thing for me is that I am doing no harm. That's what's really important. I'm like, you're not doing any harm, but you're not doing any good either. So what are we talking about here? And that's kind of what's going on with the FDA. There's no harm here. Where they get involved, Renata, is the FDA is out there on the web looking at websites.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody claiming that their product cures cancer? Is anybody claiming that it lowers cholesterol? Is anybody, I could actually send you a document that I just got yesterday, because my trade organization kind of reports these things when the FDA steps in on a company and says, hey, guess what? You have 15 days
Mm-hmm.
to address the fact that you're making claims that are drug claims.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got this. This is really interesting because they've gone to a company that's actually selling mushroom products.
Oh, really?
Making a lot of claims on there about the different diseases that these mushrooms will help to alleviate. You cannot do that.
Right.
You have to be very, very careful. And this is something where, look, we're constantly looking over the website to go, am I saying anything here that might bring down the wrath of the FDA? This company, by the way, so we saw that it was just reported. So we're like, oh, okay, let's go see what they're saying on their website, because the FDA reports what they're saying and why they shouldn't be able to say it. Let's go check it out. Guess what? The website was taken down.
Oh,
well, yeah, of course it was taken down. They took it down immediately so they could like go through it. And so that's the first thing they did, is they went like, oh, okay, look, we're going to take down our website so it won't be there anymore. And when we put it back up, it won't have any of those claims, because that's what the FDA is saying. You had better clean this thing up.
Yeah.
So those are you know, the kind of issues that are out there. And again, I wish they would do that with companies misbranding, mislabeling these products and calling them mushroom. That is a huge problem, and the ethics of it are so bad when you think that there are literally people who go to a naturopath. They might have cancer. What can I do? What you know, I don't want to get into all these treatments quite yet. I mean, what can I do to maybe, oh, I've got these great mushroom products that I know of that I'll prescribe for you. And they're prescribing them grain starch.
Right.
And I, you know, for me, I'm just like, my God. And Renata, look, you've probably, I don't know whether you've actually talked to somebody that's actually had cancer and is looking for answers. I have. They come to me. Back in the 90s, when I was the one answering the phone, I mean, I'd have people calling me up and saying, hey, I've got cancer. My dad's got cancer. I've heard mushrooms might help. Can you help out? What do you have? And all of this. And like, listening to that, I mean, my God, you want to give them grain starch?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that to me is just terrible. And to even have naturopaths who are uneducated that are prescribing these particular products, man. And naturopaths are no better than doctors when it comes to that. They are listening to the propaganda as well, and they don't know much about mushrooms, and you know, they have to be pretty well educated.
Yeah. Well, do no harm, huh?
Oh man, do no harm. Yeah, horrible.
So what do you see as the so legislation, not necessarily aside, but what else do you see as the next trend in functional mushrooms? Like, you've seen it pretty much from its conception in the US especially, and then, you know, where we're going. So where do you think we're headed? What do you think is the next thing for functional mushrooms?
Well, you know, the next thing that we're seeing right now is our extracts being put into food products. And when I say food products, I mean beverages are foods also. Right. So we've got companies that are absolutely, all the different drinks out there now, besides mushroom coffee, which has kind of become a big thing.
Yeah.
But there's also just functional drinks of all sorts out there now. In fact, it's really encouraging because so many of those carbonated soft drinks that are nice and sweet are kind of on the downside. Yeah. And all, you know, you look into the drinks area now and you're like, wow, look at all these different offerings there are. So interesting and so innovative. So, you know, I mean, we got all these different vegetable drinks and different fruit drinks, but there's just a lot of functional beverages out there, which I think is a interesting space. And then just in terms of functional foods in general, and The other thing too is one of the things that I'm doing now and we're transitioning on is we're kind of getting away from the term medicinal.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We're going to functional.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for a couple of reasons. One of which is like, look, okay, they've been known as medicinal mushrooms for ages, but it still kind of connotes medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something where, okay, yeah, maybe better we didn't have that term attached to mushroom.
Right.
Functional foods, they've been around a while, but now they're gaining more and more acceptance and more sort of like people hearing about them. And so that's the perfect way to present these mushrooms now, as they're functional mushrooms. They have these attributes, positive attributes out there. And again, for me, the whole idea is food as medicine. Food is medicine. And so for me, I'm always, if you listen to my podcast, I'm always talking about eating mushrooms. Put it into your diet. Mm-hmm. You know, the forgotten food. And I think that's important. And so again, when it comes to supplementation, what we're talking about, and this is the other side of it too, is you have to educate people to the fact that the cold that they've got today and they've taken a couple of mushroom capsules is not gone tomorrow. That's not how it works. No, you have to put these supplements into your regimen, and they're going to act much like a vitamin acts, right? Why do we take vitamins anyway? We do it for prevention. Right. We do it because we're like, well, I'm not sure. I haven't gone in for my vitamin test recently to see what vitamins or minerals I don't have, right? Right. No, but basically, in order to make sure that I'm okay, I'll be taking vitamin D, or maybe I'll take vitamin C, or some of these vitamins just for preventive purposes, just to know that I do, in fact, am getting enough of that vitamin, or some specific mineral that I know that where I live, I'm not getting enough of. And certainly the whole vitamin D thing that I'm sure you've been reading about too, with COVID, and the fact of how important that is for us, and how when they've done all these tests, they find that so many of the people who were having major issues with COVID were deficient in vitamin D, whereas a lot of the others were not. So you think about that, and for us in the Northern Hemisphere, I mean, we may think that, oh yeah, in the summertime we get out in the sun, but the fact of the matter is we're still not getting what you'd be getting in other latitudes, just because of the angle of the sun. We're not getting as much UV as we should. So those types of things, and that's how I like to present mushrooms, as they are something that are working in the background, kind of like vitamins. They are giving you a higher level of immune competence. And where you should actually be looking is, okay, when the cold season or the flu season rolls around, how am I doing?
Right.
You know, am I hanging in there? Well, no, you're not. You should stop smoking cigarettes, for God's sakes.
Yeah, everything plays off. It's all synergy, right? It's like, well, I can completely do nothing else for my body but take a vitamin D supplement, right?
Oh man, you know what? I used to smoke tobacco 20 years or 25 years or something like that, and colds, yeah, I commonly have at least one cold a year. Flus, probably hit the flu once a year, because those are respiratory illnesses.
Right.
And so when I stopped, I mean, getting a cold, I can't remember really the last time. Getting the flu, I can't remember. It's very, very uncommon. And my lungs have been thanking me ever since.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure.
But anyway, I think, again, the key issue here is mushrooms should be looked at as preventive medicine. They are a functional food that help us with our immunity and help us basically live a healthier life. And of course, yes, we all know that diet and lifestyle play a large role in that, but this is just one thing that can help you out.
So we talked about the future of the products. We talked about what we know they can do. What would you like to see, like the next upcoming studies as to what they can do, or, anything, as someone is knowledgeable about what, every piece of this puzzle, what pieces are you looking for? What more would you like to see studied?
Well, you know what, given the popularity of lion's mane,
Mm-hmm.
I think more studies on lion's mane and sort of our cognitive health
Mm-hmm.
would be really interesting, because I always find it interesting with lion's mane that there are so many younger people that are interested in nootropics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, okay, great. I mean, that's great, but you have no idea what
Right.
losing a bit of memory is until you get into your 60s. And
Yeah.
then you're starting to go, oh my God, what's happening? What was that again? I'm trying to, I have it on my tip of my tongue. I can't quite remember it.
Yeah.
Well, we all have those moments, even when we're young, but the fact is they get more and more. So it'd be great to have more studies on lion's mane, certainly, and good clinical trials. And look, here's the thing too, I want you to really understand is that when you go out there and you look at the research,
mm-hmm.
there's a tremendous body of research.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful, because if you let's just say the research on reishi, mm-hmm. and over 40 years or something, you would come away going, my God, there's nothing that reishi can't do.
Right.
Look, that's not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
They will fractionate. They will be able to do tests that show this activity and that activity. That doesn't necessarily translate into the nutritional supplement and the amount you happen to be taking, because they're doing tests with a very purified fraction, which mm-hmm. in the normal product itself may be minuscule.
Okay.
So small that it would have no real benefit. So for me, I'm always like, look, we have to look at each specific mushroom is what 2 or 3 things do you do well?
Right.
So that's the other part about it. So yeah, lion's mane, I'd love to see a little bit more research on that. Cordyceps would be interesting to really look at that. Cordyceps traditionally has been used for fatigue. Mm-hmm. Is it really something where we could be taking cordyceps and help out for energy and fatigue? Let's see some more clinical trials on that, because again, we don't have a lot of those. And the issue really is the clinical trials are expensive. That's why they're not done on a lot of products. And then the ones that are, you have to be very careful, because a lot of those clinical trials are being sponsored by a company. Mm-hmm. And they get the report back, and the people giving them that report, well, maybe it didn't really prove anything, but they can make it sound like there was some benefit somewhere. And some myceliated grain companies have done this. It's kind of like tobacco research that's saying, oh no, tobacco really doesn't have these harmful effects that you claim it does. See, look at our research.
Right.
It's called corporate research. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one thing. But with a lot of this scientific research out there, it's like drug discoveries. That's what they're doing. They're looking for some fraction. Oh, is this something unique that's got this wonderful thing? Maybe we can follow that track and turn it into a drug.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful when we're looking at the research, and because, my God, you look at the internet, it's chaga, mm-hmm. the king of mushrooms. There's nothing chaga doesn't do. Just shut the hell up. I mean, literally, just be quiet. No, chaga is not the king of mushrooms, and reishi's not the queen. Stop that, for one. And 2, stop treating these things as a panacea just because that helps you sell product. Right. Don't sell it that way. Panaceas, no, I don't want to hear about panaceas. Let's focus on a few things that we're fairly confident about that it can do. So that's the other thing. I'm always like, look, don't try and say that there's 5, 10, 20 different things. Or I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, an interview with somebody I know. He's got a chaga business. He's a great guy, great chaga business. Oh yeah, chaga, there's 200 different unique compounds in chaga that make it so much better than everything else, and on and on and on. And I'm just like going, oh my God, don't say that.
Right.
It's not helpful at all. Ultimately, people will see that as nothing more than marketing hype. You don't have to do that. Focus on what it really does. Yes, it's got 3 or 4 really great compounds, triterpenoids, that make it what it is. So please, no hype. Stay away from the hype. Stay with what is real. Sell it on what it's good for. Sell it as a preventive medicine that is important for people to be taking, like you're taking a vitamin. Functional food, functional medicine. All of our foods, all of our supplements should be geared to that, keeping us healthy, working in a preventive manner.
Absolutely. Good note. Actually, so first of all, what a perfect note to end the normal stuff on. And also, would you be interested in answering some fun, silly questions?
Some what questions?
Some fun, silly questions.
Sure. Awesome.
So, what are your favorite nicknames that you've gotten related to mushrooms?
Wow. You know what, like me personally? Oh, actually, look, other than occasionally people will say, oh, you're such a fun guy.
Right, fair, yeah.
Which is a very, very common one. And then, but I don't hear that much because it's gotten a little bit old and tired.
Yeah.
But, and the other thing out there is some people will tell the very old and tired joke of, oh yeah, mushrooms, they're, I feel kind of like a mushroom. They keep me in the dark and feed me bullshit.
I don't know I've ever heard that one before. That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah, I know. But you see, the thing about that is interesting is like, look, people think, oh yeah, mushrooms, they're grown in manure or something like that. And it's like, well, okay, look, the agaricus mushroom, the button mushroom, is grown in a compost that at times will use manures, but the basic thing that they're composting is straw.
Okay.
That mushroom is actually growing on composted straw, and people think, oh yeah, it's growing out of manure. And I even had people go, oh yeah, I don't want to eat that. It's growing out of manure. Like,
right.
Jesus, get a grip.
If you're eating anything from a field, right? If you're eating anything from a field, the odds of manure having been near it at least are probably pretty high.
Do you want a natural fertilizer in there, or do you want like a chemical fertilizer?
Right. Take your pick, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So actually, you might have answered my second one was, are there any fun mushroom related puns or jokes that you like to use or you've heard?
Yeah, well, I don't use those.
Oh, fine.
No, I don't. It would be the rare occasion that I would, throw out fun guy.
Right.
And again, the other one about, oh yeah, they keep me in the dark and all of that. I'm like, yeah, that man is like, that's so old. So no, not really. There's not really many out there that I'm, other than those sort of common.
Right. I was gonna say your mushroom humor is more elevated. Is that what you're saying?
Well, God, yeah, mushroom humor. That's really interesting because there are certain things out there that are kind of fun, like here's one that I really love, and this is just kind of I found it somewhere as a postcard. I think somebody might have given it to me, and look, people have given me all sorts of mushroom things, but this is just kind of a fun image.
Oh, it is fun.
Isn't that cool?
Nice.
So there it is, the mushroom, and he's holding onto his girlfriend. Do
you have a favorite mushroom in the media? like Goombas or Toads from Mario or anything like that?
Oh, well, that was sort of funny that in Mario Brothers, how the little Amanita mushroom became a symbol in that one. That is fun. And look, I just think that mushrooms are becoming more acceptable in the West. They're so common in Asia, very common, and people have been eating them for thousands of years, and they've got 12 different edible mushrooms in their marketplace, and so people, and you probably heard too then how I talk to people about how to cook mushrooms and how important that is. And again, it's just one of those, like I sort of like to say, it's a forgotten food. And now we're starting to learn more about it and just get more with the program. And for that reason, I mean, anybody who's getting into the whole mushroom thing right now, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, this is just an area that's growing and growing and growing. So it's going to get bigger, and companies that do it right, that are out there, develop a market, promote the product properly, they will have a place. A lot of small people that are in that will probably, not last very long, because there's an amazing amount of people that just want to jump on the bandwagon as usual. But we're just kind of like finally rediscovering mushrooms. And again, for me, I really feel like they're a longevity food. Just eating mushrooms, I just think, promotes longevity and health. And this has been demonstrated with some studies of large populations, and they break it all down, and they find out what people's diets are like, and then they make some comparisons. And it seems to be real. And so I just think, it's like, God, I eat a lot of mushrooms every week. I mean, there's just a standard thing. Unfortunately, my little community, I'm lucky if I can get shiitake regularly. I get the agaricus, and a lot of people, the button mushroom, it's like this, it's common, it's like tasteless, all that. I disagree. I still, despite the fact that I've eaten thousands of pounds, I still like it. I still think it's a very flavorful mushroom, and so I still enjoy it, and I still buy it, and that's regular part of my diet, and certainly shiitake is too when I can get it.
That's awesome. No, it's listening to anything that you've done, and I mean listening to you here too. It's very apparent your passion, your shroom passions, very, very obvious. Me again. Thanks so much for watching the interview, and obviously a huge thank you to Jeff for coming on and talking to us. He was just a delight to talk to. I think you could really tell how awesome he is. So if you haven't checked it out already, go to our community blog and check out part 1 about the 2 different types of extracts, just to give you a little bit more context. And while you're there, check out whatever else might interest you. We have some really fun stuff over there, educational, fun and funky. We try to get a mix. So please feel free to check out the blog. Obviously, you can find us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel here, check out our other videos with recipes and other fun stuff. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed the interview. We hope that we'll see you around.